course, motherfuckers, that is what chicken have, that's so it works. Of course, motherfuckers, that is what chicken have, that everyone has to have dinner. That is what chicken have, so it's life, so what are you gonna say? Of course, everyone has to have dinner, that is what chicken have. Of course, that is what chicken have. What do you think? What moves the world? You think money moves the world? Kisses moves the world, motherfuckers, that is what chicken have. That kisses move the world, that love move the world, of course, that is what chicken have, of course, that is what chicken say. Of course, I'm kissing my cigarettes, I'm smoking ashes, of course, that is what chicken have. That I'm kissing my cigarettes, I'm smoking ashes, of course, that is what chicken have. That no one can against me, of course, motherfuckers, what do you think? Of course, that is what chicken say, that no one can against me. That you come and you fish, of course, but I'm not gonna give you a single cent, motherfuckers, of course, that is what chicken have. I mean, some of my wives wants to give you money, that is what chicken have, I give it them, that is what chicken have, that I don't want. Of course, that is what chicken have, that when we grow up, they are gonna be some motherfuckers, of course, that is what chicken have. So come on, of course, that is what chicken say, that no one can against me, so what are you gonna say? Of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me, of course, that is what chicken say, that no one can against me, so what are you gonna say? Of course, when we grow up, they are gonna drink alcohol, they are gonna fuck some bitches, they are gonna kiss some women, of course, like everyone, of course, so come on, that is what chicken have, of course, and if not, they are gonna go fishing with their friends, of course, I don't think so. You want to kill them and they are 33, of course, they are gonna live a long life, they are gonna have many kids, and they are not gonna play together for all, of course, motherfucker. That is what chicken have, so it works, of course, that is what of course, motherfuckers, what do you think that moved the world? Of course, kisses move the world, motherfucker, of course, that is what chicken have. That you think we like to work? Of course not, we only work to can have a bottle of alcohol and smoke some cigarettes and be with women, of course, that is what chicken have, for that we work, motherfucker, of course, that is what chicken see, that no one can engulf me, that we work for that, motherfucker, of course, we work to can drink a bottle of alcohol and kiss some women, of course, motherfucker, of course, you think a kiss is treason, of course not, motherfucker, a kiss is not treason, motherfucker, of course, a kiss is only a kiss, motherfucker, of course, what do you think you feel bad and you're mad at me because I kissed a woman? Of course, motherfucker, please, what are you telling? Of course, that is what chicken have, that I'm ashes, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me, so come on, of course, motherfuckers, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me, so come on, of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me, so come on, of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, that I don't give a damn. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have. You wanna make me feel guilty because of having sex? Of course, because of kissing a woman. Of course, motherfucker, I don't feel guilty because of that. Of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me. So come on, of course, that is what chicken have, that I have my whole bitches counting and washing. Of course, that is what chicken have, that all my money is clean. Of course, I have them in my Ebither accounting. Of course, I have them in April counting. I had them in Nyan accounting. All my money is clean and declared. Of course, motherfucker, that all my names are mine. That is what chicken have, that I have. That I have them. Of course, motherfucker, that are my knives are mine. Of course, that is what chicken have. That are my knives are mine. Of course, that is what chicken have. And I have them declared. Of course, that is what chicken have. That no one can against me. Not like many people who is walking with knives in the hood. Who is not theirs, of course. All my money is declared. And by now, yeah, better by April, but now, of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me, so come on, of course, that is what chicken say. That my money is declared, of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me, so what are you gonna say? Of course, motherfucker, that all my knives are mine, of course, motherfucker, but I don't wanna hurt no one, no wanna hurt me. Of course, that is what chicken have, that I don't give it down. Of course, motherfucker, that you're gonna be gone and I'm gonna be drinking some alcohol and kissing some women. Of course, that is what chicken say, that we are ashes, motherfucker. For what do you think we work? Of course, we work to can drink a bottle of alcohol and kiss some women, motherfucker. For that we work. Of course, motherfucker, if not we wouldn't work. That is what chicken have, so come on. Of course, that is what chicken say. Of course, motherfucker, that I'm ashes. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, but no one can against me, so come on. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, that I don't wanna take you to jail, motherfucker. Of course, that is what chicken have, but I'm not a policeman, motherfucker. Of course, that all my money is clean in the club, that I'm not a policeman, motherfucker. I don't wanna put you in jail. Of course, motherfucker, I don't wanna crucify you. Of course, motherfucker, give it that. Of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me. That I'm a free man, like a free man, I'm gonna stay. That is what chicken say, that no one can against me. So come on, of course, that is what chicken say, that no one can against me. That I'm free, and I'm gonna stay free. That is what chicken have, so come on. Of course, that is what chicken have, that I have a shark. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me. Of course, motherfucker, they take you to the water, and in the water we fight. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me. So come on, of course, what are you gonna say? Of course, motherfucker, no one can against me. So come on, of course, that is what chicken have, that no one can against me. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have. You wanna take my kids, and of course you wanna say that God is the father for my kids. Of course you wanna wash my kids. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have. That when they grow up, they are gonna go out and they are gonna drink some bottles of alcohol and they are gonna kiss some women. Of course, so go on. Of course, that you're gonna be gone and they are gonna be having fun with some alcohol and some women. Of course, that is what chicken have, so come on. Of course, that is what chicken have, and they are not gonna play the Joseph role. Of course, motherfucker, that is what chicken have. You want that they play the Joseph role. Of course, we want to be in the circle. Of course, motherfucker, that you wanna kill my kids when they are 33. Of course, that makes no sense, motherfucker. Of course, they are gonna have a long life. Of course, that is what chicken say. And they are gonna drink some alcohol and kiss some women, fuck some bitches, have kids and everything. Of course, that is what chicken have. And they are not gonna feel guilty because of kissing a woman. Of course, and they are not gonna go fishing with their friends. Of course, they are gonna be kissing women and drinking some alcohol. Of course, that is what chicken have. And they are not gonna play the Joseph role. Of course, they are not gonna be stepfathers of their own kids. They are not gonna kill them at 33. And they are not gonna play the Joseph role. Of course, you are not gonna make them be stepfathers of their own kids. Of course, I'm feeling guilty because of having them and making them stepfathers of their own kids. They are gonna have something they can call their own and raise them until they can walk at their own. Of course, that is what you can have. So are gonna make people, of course, motherfucker, or if maybe not, I give it that. Of course, that is what you can have, that you're not gonna kiss your own woman because you're gonna be a traitor if you do that. Of course, motherfucker, I'm not a traitor because of kissing my wife or my girlfriends or everyone. Of course, I'm not a traitor because of giving a gift, a kiss, of course. I'm not a traitor because of giving a kiss, of course, motherfucker. And if you feel a traitor because of giving a kiss, it's your damn problem that I'm gonna smoke the damn cigarettes, motherfucker. Of course, you're gonna be the father of your own kid and say that the kid belongs to the cross and let them fishing. Of course, I'm not gonna give you a single cent, motherfuckers, of course, but you feel guilty because of kissing your wife and she gave your heart to God, of course. Then do that if you want, motherfucker, but I'm gonna kiss without regrets and I'm gonna kiss the cigarettes, of course, motherfucker. I'm not killing no one, I'm not killing no one, anyone, I'm not killing no one, I'm not a genocide, I don't have a gun, I don't kill no one, I do nothing, I don't take no one to jail because I'm not a policeman, I don't kill no one, and I don't take no one to jail, I'm not in the army, I'm not in the police, motherfucker, of course, that is what you can have, so go on, of course, that is what you can say, that I'm over here working to have money, and drink a bottle of alcohol, and kiss some women, of course, motherfucker, that I'm smoking my cigarettes, I'm precious, of course, I'm smoking my cigarettes, I'm giving a kiss to my cigarette, and that is all, of course, motherfucker, I'm not in the police, I'm not in the army, and I'm gonna kiss my cigarette, and I'm gonna give it up, that is what you can have, so go on, of course, that is what you can have, that I'm gonna work to can drink a bottle of alcohol and kiss some women like everyone, of course, for what we work to drink a bottle of alcohol and kiss some women, motherfucker, of course, that is what you can have, for that we work, of course, motherfucker, and I'm gonna work, have fun, and smoke my cigarettes, and I'm not in the police, and I'm not in the army, and I'm gonna smoke my cigarette and kiss my cigarette until they are ashes, of course, motherfucker, that is what you can have, so go.